And there we go. That's Dreamtale with Secret Door off of their CD called Difference. And before that was Opeth, almost twice, off of Still Life. The song was Moonlapse Vertigo. That's one of my favorite Opeth tunes. It is a bit past 9:30. Normally 9:30 is right at the time when we do this, but there was a good song left to be played and I didn't want to leave it out. But now we're ready. Now we're ready for the Northwest Indiana Wrestling Action Program, albeit a very dull and brief version. There we go. It is the Northwest Indiana Wrestling Action Program. I'm Ken the Metal Professor. You have been listening to Mostly Metal, and sometime before 10 o'clock, maybe you'll hear a little bit more Mostly Metal. But for the next few minutes, it's time for some wrestling chat for the person out there, singular probably, who uses this as their wrestling lifeline for the week. I don't have any guests in the studio. I'm just going to tell you some things that happened recently and give you a rundown of some shows coming up and the goings on, and I've got that musical intro to the show, and even if nothing special is happening, I'll still put that in there because after this show is done, sometime the next couple of days, I go chop out the talking portion of this, so the NWIWRAP portion of my 2-hour block, chop it out and put it up on YouTube for people to have a listen to if they weren't able to hear the live broadcast or the replay. And obviously, the live broadcast is now, unless you're listening to the replay. If you're listening to this Sunday evening at about 20 to 10, you were hearing the live broadcast. And if you're listening to this Wednesday night at about 20 minutes to midnight, you were listening to the replay. So Mostly Metal / NWIWRAP is the 8 to 10 block here on WVLP on Sunday nights, and then rebroadcast Wednesday from 10 to midnight. And I'd love to put the entire 2-hour block up on YouTube, but YouTube would yell at me for putting copyrighted, songs in a 2-hour program. So I don't do that, but I can extract and post just the talking part, which is the wrestling part. And with our license for being an LPFM station, we're not licensed to say make music podcasts. We can stream, we can rebroadcast, but there's something different legalistically, I suppose, about podcasts, so I can't take my music block and put it out there as a podcast. But the talking's fine, so that's available right now when it airs, later on during the rebroadcast, and then also on YouTube on the NWIWRAP channel, NWIWRAP. This, currently, right here, right now, is episode 34. So I've been doing this since last August 2016. And squeezed in 34 shows now. 33 and 32 were much better than 34 is about to be, I'll tell you that much, though. So, anyway, what's been happening in the Northwest Indiana wrestling region, in the wrestling scene? Lots of stuff. This has been a really busy few weeks. I'm reporting on stuff that I've seen. So last weekend, Pro Wrestling King had Halloween Mania 4 out in Bourbon, which is about an hour away from here. And PWK is one of the official friends of NWIWRAP and WVLP because I've had several of their performers here. In fact, the owner, Eric King, visited with his wife, Lisa, and champion at the time, Steven Drochner. They were in a few months ago to talk about Pro Wrestling King. They had it's one of their bigger events during the year, Halloween Mania 4. 9 matches altogether. Run through them really fast in case you recognize any names. Shady Christian Zion defeated CK1 and D'Angelo Steele. CK1 has been in the studio here, friend of the show. Then there was a 3-way tag team match, Mike Idol and Bruiser James River against PMS, the Second City Cyans, and Heels for Hire. So, sorry, 4-way tag. I was there too. I should have known that. And that was to see which tag team was going to become the number one contenders for the Pro Wrestling King tag team titles, currently held by Spirit of Detroit. Then there was a Halloween costumed up battle royal kind of thing, so the ring filled with several people in different costumes, and Donald Trump was the winner of that Royal Rumble. That was a sad moment. Spirit of Detroit beat Deadly Alliance to retain their tag team titles, and I'll say a little bit more about that later on. Actually, I'll say more about that right now because, hey, why not? After the match, they got on the microphone and challenged the Faces of Fear at the next PWK event. I'll tell you when that's going to be soon, but the Barbarian and Meng, the Faces of Fear, if you remember those names from old WWF, WWE, they're going to come in and challenge for those tag titles now held by the Spirit of Detroit, so that should be fun. Idle Hines beat Travis Trendbender, but then at the end of the match, Idle had a submission hold on Trendbender, and even though he won the match and even though the bell rang and the ref was yelling at him, he didn't let it go for quite a while, and so the ref said, never mind, you didn't win this match after all, and he overturned the decision, and Travis got the win. Adam Bueller and Russ Jones beat Roger Lanier and the Celtic Nightmare in a tag team match. Joe Jitsu beat Ames. Match number 8, Tank, who's been on the show. He was on the show by telephone, and he beat Theo Storm to become the new Pro Wrestling King Unified Champion. And Theo had put some stakes on that match that not only was it for the title, but the loser of the match had to leave PWK for 90 days. And Theo lost, so he's gone for 90 days. And then in the main event, it was a cage match, and it was for control of the company. And here we had two friends of the show, Steven Drochner and Diesel Troxy, were on a team with Sean Tyler and Tony Thunder. They were the Rat Pack, sort of the upstarts of the promotion. And if you listened to the show with Diesel a few weeks ago, you know why. And they beat Jared Kripke, Jaden Quick, Sedan, and Austin Fury. Those four were fighting for the honor of Pro Wrestling King and for Eric King to maintain control of the company. During the match, sort of at the end, Damian Saint, the manager of the Rat Pack, opened up the cage door and tossed in a chair, went in with a chair, gave it a shove, or ended up in the hands of Sedan. And instead of whacking the bad guys, he turned around and whacked the good guys that were on his team. So he turned and joined the Rat Pack and helped them win. And so now they are in charge of PWK, and we'll see what they do with the next show coming up. And that show will be, when will that show be? That's going to be, I already mentioned it, Friday the 20th. I got 2 pieces of paper here, and I'm trying to go back and forth. I shouldn't try to hop pages. I'm going to tell you about shows coming up later. I'm not going to try to jump into that right now. So just yesterday, MonsterCon was held at the Porter County Expo Center, over there on the other side of 49 from us here in Valpo. And it was a good time. It was a really neat event. I mean, they filled up the front 3 expo buildings, and lots of vendors in there. If you like those little pop figurines now, the Funkos, I think they're called, with the big heads, those things were everywhere. Every vendor had stacks of those things. That was a business I should have gotten into when it was the right time. But MonsterCon was a thing. It went on. It was a lot of fun. Lots of cosplay going on, and vendors and entertainment. And one of the parts of the entertainment was Fire Pro Wrestling. And we've had some folks from Fire Pro in here on WVLP. They did 2 kind of exhibition shows, so 2-hour-long events, so to speak. One at about 11:30 in the morning, and then the next one at 2. And I saw the early one, and Dave Allen was on the show. He's been in here to talk to me on WVLP. He beat Kyle Cross. Roach beat Adam Bueller. Austin Fury took on Rick Vidal and Richie Rothschild and beat them. Jeremy Hadley beat Louis Rojas to hold on to his Fire Pro title, and Johnny Motley beat Stonehand Slater Wallace to become the MonsterCon champion. And then in the afternoon, I had left by then because I'd already spent way too much money. Adam Bueller beat Kyle Cross, Louis Rojas beat Rick Vidal, Austin Fury beat Richie Rothschild, and then there was a looked like a 6-person tag match with Kyle Cross, Rick Vidal, and Jeremy Hadley taking on Adam Bueller, Louis Rojas, and Stonehands Slater Wallace. So a group of guys pulling double duty, doing 2 shows, and a shout out to Eric King because he helped me keep track of this by posting these lists of results on Facebook. So I was there for both, but I wasn't taking notes on either like I sometimes do. So it was good that he put these lists together on Facebook so that I could remember what the heck happened. Now, every once in a while, when I do go to these shows, I will take some pictures and take notes and then do a write-up about what happened. And if you're interested, you can find those at metalprofessor.com. And there will be a new one up in the next few days because I did take some notes at the ARW Pro show last night that took place at Morton High School over in Hammond, just on the other side of the floodwaters, or whatever was happening last night with all the rain. It was a fundraiser for the Morton High School Marching Band to raise money for their uniforms. And that was a stacked show. It was a lot of fun, and I'll put up a detailed report about that. But just quickly, I can run through what happened. The first match was Dakota Prodigy defeating Christopher St. Michael to hold on to his Indiana State Championship. Dakota's been here. He was one of my first guests ever last year. We'll have to have him back soon. The second match was the Mexicutioners, Santana Starks and the Machine, taking on Nick Colucci and Fitzsimmons, who I hadn't seen before, I don't think. Renee Van Peebles defeated Moxie Molly. Now, Moxie Molly was in here a couple of weeks ago, very, very recently. And, I wasn't sure if I would say anything about this match other than the results, but I think I have to because last week, Mr. Chaz Moretti was here in the studio, and he was a perfect gentleman the entire time, talking about being an agent of various wrestlers in the area and how interested he is in their best interests and things that he has to do to make sure that the outcomes are what he thinks they should be. So we had a nice conversation, but during this match, Mr. Moretti distracted the ref and tossed to Renee Van Peebles a foreign object. It was kind of like a brass knuckles sort of thing, maybe some hard tape wrapped around in a circle that Renee Van Peebles could wrap around her hand, make it a much harder object, and clonk Moxie Molly in the head. And during this match also, Mr. Moretti shoved Dakota Prodigy. Dakota and Moxie have been a nice little wrestling pair. I mean, not like an item pair, but just, they're standing up for each other. Moxie's been coming to the ring with Dakota, and Dakota came to the ring with Moxie to cheer her on. He's, a pseudo-manager kind of thing. Mr. Moretti shoved Dakota Prodigy to the ground during all of this. And, Dakota's been a guest on this show, and Mr. Moretti was here last week on the show. And I don't know that I like this idea of guest-on-guest violence. I mean, it didn't happen at the station, but, I respect both of these guys, and it makes me sad to see one guest of NWIWRAP putting his hands on another guest outside of the ring. Inside of the ring, what goes around, right? So, violence between my guests, I just can't tolerate that, because imagine when we have the WVLP picnic or the hog roast, and I invite all of my guests back to have a happy time together in camaraderie, and this has happened before. That's going to spoil the picnic, so cut it out, guys. Come on, you're better than that. But, Dakota owes Moretti one, so he can clock him once, and I won't say anything. After that, the picture show and Hornswoggle, who was in as a guest, defeated the family in a 6-way match. Nick Cutler defeated Theo Storm, and Joey Boom Boom defeated John Hudson in a no DQ match. There's a whole lot of history there that I don't have time to go into. Max Holiday and the new ARW heavyweight champion teamed up. The new one is Rough Crossing. He won the title from Max Holiday. They took on the actual tag team champions, Aggravated Assault, Mr. Moretti's other ARW interests, which he talked about last week. After Rough Crossing had won the title from Max Holiday, Aggravated Assault came out and beat up Max Holiday, and Rough Crossing got involved to run them out of there. Now, he and Max Holiday are not buds. They don't get along. They don't like each other, but, Rough Crossing did the right thing at the right time. And so the two of them were in the tag team against Aggravated Assault. This was a non-title match, but Chaz Moretti was so confident that his team would win, and he put up a briefcase filled with $25,000 to go to the winners. And so Max Holiday and Rough Crossing won the match and started to take off with the briefcase. But their manager, Rat J Flywheel, went back to Moretti. He said, you can keep your briefcase, but we want a title shot at the next event. So there's sort of a new tag team in the mix in ARW. They call themselves Rough Holiday. Get it? Rough Crossing and Max Holiday. And they are going to have another match with Aggravated Assault. Those guys are large, by the way. And that's going to happen at the next ARW event coming up in a few weeks. And so that's the rundown of what's happened recently. Here's what's coming up. It's going to be another busy few weeks. This coming Friday, October 20th, is the next PWK event. It's called Faces of Fear and Loathing. It will be at the Palmer Center in Lakeville, Illinois. That's Friday night, October 20th. That's at 7:30 Eastern Time. That'll be 6:30 for us, because Lakeville, Indiana, I believe, is the next time zone over. And that's the show where Spirit of Detroit is going to take on Faces of Fear, Mang and the Barbarian, guests from the old WWE days, WWF days. So that should be a lot of fun. I'm trying to think if there's any other high-profile match that's going to be there. Based on what happened at the last show, I don't think so, because Tank can't fight Theo Storm anymore, because Theo's gone for 90 days because he wanted that extra stipulation in his match, and then he lost. Saturday, October 21st, so next weekend as well, is the second event put on by the new promotion Black Label Pro. So they're having Phase 2 of the Darkest Timeline Championship. So if you remember, Mikey was in here several weeks ago talking about the first event, and at these wrestling shows, this one's at Crown Point at the On the Square Sports Academy. At the first event, they had several tournament matches, and the winners of those tournament matches are now coming together for Phase 2 to have more matches, and this will keep going into the third event at the end of the year. So Black Label Pro is up and running. Very successful first show a few weeks ago. This coming Saturday, October 21st, in Crown Point, Black Label Pro, the Darkest Timeline Championship Tournament, Phase 2. I don't know that there's a whole lot going on Halloween weekend, because my list goes from Saturday, October 21st and jumps to Saturday, November 4th. So if anybody has information about local shows in between there, drop me a note, NWIWRAP.WVLP@gmail.com. Saturday, November 4th is the next ARW Pro Show. That's going to be at Gavitt Middle and High School in Hammond, Indiana. That'll be another fundraiser, and that's at 7:30. And so you just heard a couple of the matches that will happen there. Or at least one of the matches will have Max Holiday and Rough Crossing teaming up against the tag champs Aggravated Assault for those tag team titles. And don't forget that Chaz Moretti is the agent of those tag team champions. Saturday, November 11th, will be a big event over in South Bend at the Century Center. It's EHF POG, which is the Price of Glory Wrestling. I think they're hosted mostly in Michigan, but they're sneaking across the border to join in on this big event. And PWK with an event called Stack the Deck. And some of the outside guests that will be there will be Jake the Snake Roberts, Crazy Steve from Impact Wrestling, Joey Ryan, and Shark Boy. So that's going to be a lot of fun. That's probably going to go like 4 hours, if I remember from some of the other multi-promotion events happening at the Century Center. On November 12th, the next day, that's a Sunday, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon at the Kankakee Valley High School in Wheatfield, Illinois, will be ACW, Acme Championship Wrestling. They're doing a benefit show for someone named John Hendel, and I don't know his particular situation, but it must be a friend of that promotion, or a friend of the promotion, whatever it is. So a benefit show for him. Some of the matches listed: Tristan Hayes versus Jeremy Hadley, Cliff Caviar and TK Zero will team up against Top Guns, and Johnny Motley will take on Flawless Dave Allen. And this is of particular interest because ACW is sort of like one of the adopted promotions of WVLP and NWIWRAP, because a lot of the folks there have come in to talk on this show. And TK Zero will be here next week. His tag team partner, Cliff Caviar, was here several weeks ago. And this coming weekend, October, what date will that be? That'll be the 22nd. TK Zero will be in the studio to talk about his goings-on in this event in particular. So I'm looking forward to that. And then Wednesday, November 22nd, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, another ARW Pro Show, their annual Black and Blue Wednesday event. That will be 7:30 that Wednesday night right before Thanksgiving at the American Legion 100 in Lake Station. So really quickly, the shows I know of that are coming up relatively close to us in Valpo, within a reasonable driving distance. We got Friday, October 20th, the PWK, RCW, and EHF combined show Faces of Fear and Loathing in Lakeville, Indiana. Saturday, October 21st, so 2 shows in the same weekend. Black Label Pro running in Crown Point. 2 weeks after that, on Saturday, November 4th, ARW Pro has a show at Gavitt Middle and High School in Hammond. The week after that, Saturday, November 11th, is another multi-promotion show, EHF, POG, and PWK doing Stack the Deck in South Bend, Indiana. That same weekend, Sunday, November 12th, ACW is doing the John Hendel Benefit Show at the Kankakee Valley High School. And then Wednesday, November 22nd, ARW Pro is doing Black and Blue Wednesday at the American Legion in Lake Station, Indiana. Next week, TK0 from ACW will be my guest here on NWIWRAP. So that's what's going on. That's what's been happening, what's happening next. Keep up to date at metalprofessor.com. Drop me information that you have at NWIWRAP, NWIWRAP .WVLP at gmail.com. And that wraps it up. And I did, as usual, I talked for longer than I thought I would. So there's only a couple of minutes left before the top of the hour. But I am going to go ahead and start some music back up. It's not going to play for long. I'll have to fade it out in a couple of minutes here so that we can get to punk rock radio on WVLP, but you'll hear a couple of minutes of proggy stuff by ACT off of The Last Epic. Hope you enjoy what little bit you hear. Come on back next week for more metal, for more wrestling talk with TK0.
Right up from a wide red night. Children, it isn't up to drive one round the bend. I'm in need for sleep. Is that so hard to comprehend? Sneaking around like mice to conceal those stupid lies. I don't hear the things that you say, but hear the words you thought affect my day. I still remember when we were one, all that dedication, and now I love that integration. Why can't you see? What do I do? Only cause of me. So, I guess your visit's paid off pretty well. For you, they're all the same. Pieces in your own game. Lord, how nice to see you tell me what's the score.